Greetings, I'm Nolan Stoltz, the composer of the Route 66 Suite, and I'm about 50 miles east of Santa Fe, New Mexico, on the original route of Route 66. This would have been 1926 to 1937, getting inspiration for the AD 1926 movement and for the 66 Ghost Towns movement, because to our left right here is the ghost town of Doretta. Doretta is a place that you don't hear about in the Route 66 literature, not in books or guides or websites, but yet it was on maps during the time Route 66 came through here, such as this 1931 map. And it remained on maps until at least 1937, such as this one here, so I wanted to go in person and see why Doretta had vanished from the maps and why it's not mentioned in the Route 66 literature, even though it was there during the 11 years that Route 66 came through. On the opposite side of the railroad tracks is one of Route 66's predecessors, the National Old Trails Road. It came in from the southwest to the left there, turned north across the railroad tracks, and then turned east on what became Route 66. We can find such turn-by-turn directions in this Automobile Blue Book from 1923. You see it says to cross the railroad at Doretta. And that location was consistent with the mileage markers on these two maps from the 1930s. I knew I was in the right place, so my next step was to look for buildings from that era that still exist. The only one that fit that criteria was this building here, on the south side of the tracks along the National Old Trails Road. I met the lovely couple that lived there, and they showed me around back, and this dated brick, 1918. They said that they were told that this house used to serve as a store and a post office, and even took me down into the basement. Then they showed me this wall, an addition to the building from 1920. This here is a list of post offices in New Mexico in 1921. You see Doretta highlighted there. They told me that before this building was built in 1918, there was a temporary wooden structure for a few years that served as the post office and store. Those dates are consistent with the Place Names of New Mexico book that show the post office being from 1915 to 1939. Then they showed me an inscription written on bricks inside the house. It reads, "This house built by George Honest in the year of 1927 AD. That makes this house built in 3 stages, 1918, addition 1920, and the final edition 1927. Next, I searched for any documents that I could find that mentioned George Honest from Doretta, New Mexico. I found a few things actually, such as this climate data from November 1926, the same month that Route 66 came through, and yet a year before he built this addition to the house. The last document I found was also climate data, and this was October 1930. The next thing I wanted to figure out was why did this 1931 map have Blanchard in parentheses under Doretta? Was this another ghost town? Was this another name for the place? I did some digging and found that Blanchard was actually 1.2 miles east of Doretta, and at that location you have the Blanchard Church of Christ. But then I noticed this sign along the railroad tracks in Doretta. It says Blanchard. So then I thought perhaps Blanchard is just a name given by the railroad for this area. So then I decided to look at old maps from before 1915, before the post office of Doretta came in, and sure enough, this 1912 map shows Blanchard on the railroad. Today, this area is considered to be Serafina. That's because 1 miles east of Doretta is the Serafina post office. As you can see in this book, mail has been going to Serafina since 1939. But as we remember, Route 66 was 1926 to 1937 through here. So Doretta was a Route 66 town. I hope you enjoyed this introduction to the ghost town of Doretta, New Mexico. I do consider this a ghost town, even though people are living in this area, because it disappeared from maps and people no longer consider it to be Doretta. So we're going to continue west here on original Route 66, and stay tuned to more videos. Be sure to subscribe at patreon.com/Route66 Suite to access the other videos. Thank you.